Welcome back to the Unrevealed Realities, the channel where forgotten shadows whisper louder than recorded history, and where in our secret chapters we uncover stories hidden under silence, buried under questions the world never quite figured out. These are the mysteries that slip through time, the ones investigators revisit with lowered voices, the ones that won't let go. And tonight, we open one of those chapters. This one begins not with fear or legend, but with an ordinary man carrying an extraordinary weight on his shoulders, a man named Aaron Hale, 27 years old, a hiker who believed the trails were more than dirt and stone. To him, they were a promise. A path forward, a chance to step outside the chaos of bills, responsibilities, obligations, and reminders of everything he needed to fix. People described him as quiet but determined, a dreamer, someone who pushed himself harder than anyone else did. But dreams have a way of bending reality, and sometimes, the world bends back. On the morning of April 14th, Aaron walked into Ridgewater National Park, a place known for its breathtaking cliffs, unpredictable weather, and a trail network that looked simple on paper but could twist perception once you were deep inside. The park entrance camera captured him at exactly 7:42 a.m., backpack secure, boots laced tight, action camera clipped to his chest. He pauses at the gate, looks up at the trail map as though making a silent agreement with the mountain, and then steps forward with a slow exhale. That exhale, human and ordinary as it was, would be the last moment anyone sees him moving naturally on video. The morning began crisp and clear, sunlight filtering through tall pines, dew decorating the forest floor, birds calling to each other across branches as he started his ascent. Aaron was alone on the trail, though he didn't expect to be. Ridgewater Loop was popular, especially in early spring. The trail usually buzzed with dozens of hikers by this hour. But that day, for reasons the park staff still can't fully explain, no one else had signed in for the loop before him. Aaron commented on it in the first minutes of his footage, his voice calm, almost amused. "Feels like the whole trail's mine today," he said. "Kind of peaceful, maybe too peaceful." He chuckled, but the laugh echoed in a strange way, delayed, doubled, not quite like the natural acoustics of the forest he'd hiked many times before. At normal playback speed, the echo blended in. Only later, when professionals enhanced the audio, did they find something unsettling, the faintest hint of another tone underneath his voice, like a second voice buried in the soundtrack, impossible to isolate, impossible to identify. But at the time, nothing seemed wrong. He hiked with steady determination. He talked about work stress, about needing time away from screens, routines, expectations. Life had piled on, and this trip was supposed to be a reset, not a grand adventure, just a breath. A single inhale of clarity. A step back from the edges of burnout. By 9:18 a.m., the trail grew steeper, and the light shifted into long beams cutting through tall trees. He filmed everything. The frost clinging to moss, the shape of roots twisting like sculptures, and an odd section of ground where something seemed off. He focused the camera on it for nearly a minute. In the footage, you see overlapping footprints, not just one set, but several, all pointing in different directions. They weren't spaced evenly, and none matched the natural stride of a hiker. "Looks like someone was pacing here," he murmured. "Or, I don't know. Standing around for a long time." His voice dipped at the end, softer, as though aware of something he couldn't quite articulate. Later, search teams said that same thing. The prints appeared unnatural, inconsistent in depth and direction. But nobody had been recorded entering the trail ahead of him. The deeper Aaron walked into Ridgewater, the quieter the forest became. Birdsong faded, wind pulled back behind the hills. Even his steps seemed muted by the soft earth. Many hikers have described the same phenomenon on that trail, a moment when the world feels suspended, sound feels distant, and even your breath seems to belong to the forest rather than you. But what happened next went beyond the usual stories. Around 10:02 a.m., fog began to appear, not drifting lazily from the valley as expected, but rising abruptly through the trees, swirling in thin columns before spreading out in heavy sheets. "That wasn't on the weather report," Aaron said quietly. The fog thickened in minutes, cutting visibility down until the world looked reduced to shadows and outlines just feet away. He slowed but didn't stop, repeating the advice seasoned hikers gave him: keep moving, stay oriented, trust the map. Yet the trail itself began to change. Later, when investigators compared Aaron's footage to the actual ridge path, they found differences. Small at first, a fallen log he filmed wasn't present when rangers searched. A rock formation seen behind him didn't match any known feature of that section. And at one point, his GPS pin recorded him veering slightly east, toward terrain too sloped to comfortably traverse. Then came the first truly inexplicable moment. At 11:47 a.m., Aaron filmed a wide overlook, a cliff edge staring down into a fog-filled valley. The scene should have been bright, open, sweeping. But everything in the video feels too dim, too muted, like the area is covered by something thicker than fog. He whispers, "This place feels different. Like it's watching me." And as he speaks, something shifts in the frame, a shape far behind him, standing between two trees, motionless. Just a silhouette, tall, narrow, unmoving. When the footage is slowed and enhanced, the shape appears and disappears in exactly 1 second, not fading, not stepping away, simply there, then gone. Investigators debated it endlessly. Some claimed it was a branch. Others said it was the result of compression artifacts from the camera. But no one could explain why the outline resembled a figure standing upright, or why it cast no visible shadow. Aaron didn't react. If he noticed anything, he didn't say. The fog may have hidden it from him, but the camera saw it. At 12:13 p.m., his footage ends abruptly. No closing line, no explanation. The camera shuts off mid-step. Later, when the device was recovered, battery life remained at 42%. He didn't turn it off because it died. So why did the recording stop? What happened in those missing minutes is the biggest question of the entire case. Witness reports add more layers. A married couple hiking on the park's southern trail claims they heard someone shouting around 2 p.m. The voice sounded close, yet distant, as if coming through layers of air. Not panicked, but urgent. They couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable, someone trying to get attention. When they shouted back, the forest swallowed their voices, and the sound didn't return. Another hiker reported seeing a lone figure around 2:30 p.m., walking along a ridge much farther north than Aaron's planned route. The figure never turned, never looked toward the trail, simply walked into a thick curtain of fog and didn't appear on the other side. The witness wasn't absolutely certain it was Aaron, the figure was too far, and the fog too heavy, but the description matched his clothing exactly. Search teams launched at 5:20 p.m., after Aaron missed his check-in window. They combed through the trail, calling his name, following footprints, checking ravines and rock edges. Dogs picked up his scent twice, but both times it led to the same location, a cluster of tall trees where the soil was unusually soft, almost unnaturally so. The ground there recorded imprints easily, and the prints they found didn't match Aaron's boots. They were bigger, deeper, and spaced unevenly, as if the person, or whatever made them, had been standing unnaturally still for a long period. Around those trees, the air felt colder. A park ranger later described it as, almost like stepping into a different pocket of atmosphere. Instruments detected nothing abnormal, but the search team noted that electronics briefly flickered, radios cut for seconds at a time, GPS units lost signal before reconnecting. Still no sign of Aaron. The next major clue came from his GPS device, discovered 3 days later beneath a small rock ledge. It had automatically recorded its last location at 2:43 p.m., a place deep north of the official trail, an area hikers rarely enter because of steep inclines and loose shale. It wasn't only off-route, it was dangerously off-route. A fall or slide was possible, but search teams found no evidence of broken rock, no scuff marks, no torn fabric. Instead, they found something far stranger, a line of footprints leading up the slope, and stopping mid-trail. No return prints, no signs of sliding, no indication he turned around. The tracks simply ended as though he stepped into the air, or stepped into something invisible. Several theories emerged. Some suggested he could have crossed onto firmer terrain that didn't retain prints, though the area beyond was covered in soft soil. Others speculated he climbed onto a rock and jumped to another section, but distances made that implausible. And then there were those who pointed to the strange figure in the footage, the odd echoes, the unnatural fog, and the pacing footprints earlier on the trail, believing the event transcended the usual explanations. But theories don't bring answers. And the forest refused to return any physical trace of him. No torn clothing, no gear, no body, nothing of his pack's weight rediscovered anywhere. It was as if the trail swallowed the man whole. When volunteers replayed the last 2 hours of his known path, they described an eerie pattern. The forest seemed to grow stiller the farther they followed his assumed route. Birds rarely entered the upper ridge. Wind patterns shifted inexplicably. Even the temperature dipped by several degrees within a specific radius around the slope where his footprints ended. One searcher recalled feeling like he was being observed from higher up, though the ridge walls were too steep for anyone to stand comfortably above them. Despite weeks of investigation, the case stalled. Experts analyzed the camera footage again. That strange silhouette at 11:47 a.m. still defied interpretation. Audio engineers reviewed the background echo, attempting to separate it into layers, but every attempt resulted in distortion, almost like the frequencies were smeared together intentionally, as though the forest had a way of blending sound into itself. Some suggested the fog was the key. That day, an unusual weather phenomenon occurred in the region, cold pockets mixing with warm updrafts. Yet meteorologists insisted nothing about the recorded patterns explained its speed or density on Ridgewater's upper ridge. Fog doesn't move like that, one specialist said. Not without help. And then came the part no one can fully explain. 3 hikers returned to the park 2 months later and claimed they heard someone walking behind them on the same ridge where Aaron vanished. They felt a presence but saw nothing. When they stopped, the footsteps stopped. When they walked, the sound resumed, light, steady, one stride behind theirs. Eventually, the footsteps faded into silence, and the air returned to normal. Park officials dismissed the report as nerves, but privately, several rangers acknowledged sensing something similar on different days. Aaron's family still visits Ridgewater every year. His mother leaves a letter under the same tree near the trail's beginning. His brother hikes halfway up the ridge, sits on a boulder, and listens to the wind for a long time before leaving. They hold on to hope, even though logic offers little room for it. They believe he may still be out there, not lost, but waiting. The forest, however, remains unchanged. Quiet, watching, holding whatever truth lies behind the fog that swallowed his trail. Some hikers claim that at dusk, you can hear faint voices drifting between the trees. Others say they've spotted a distant figure on the ridge, standing still, facing the valley, unmoving until the fog rolls in and takes it away again. Maybe it's imagination, maybe it's memory, maybe it's something we simply don't understand yet. But the story of Aaron Hale endures, not because of what we know, but because of what we don't. He walked into a national park searching for peace, carrying dreams too heavy for the world below. He followed a trail he believed would lead him back to himself. But somewhere between the fog and the silence, between the ordinary and the unexplainable, something shifted. And a man who came to breathe again walked into a place that never returned him. And that is why his story lives here, in these secret chapters, where the unanswered things hum quietly beneath the surface, and where the mountains hold their secrets tighter than stone. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share. More mysteries await, here on the Unrevealed Reality.